More consistently than any other country in Europe, Great Britain is turning its security and defense policy upside down in order to free up scope for investments in cyber weapons, hybrid warfare, artificial intelligence, and drones. In February 2013, the chief of the Russian General Staff, Valeri Gerasimov, published a highly regarded article in a specialist journal. The basic rules of war have changed, wrote Gerasimov. The role of non-military means in achieving political and strategic goals is increasing, and in many cases they are even more effective than armed violence, he wrote. The use of propaganda goes back well into the Cold War, but in the digital information age, cyber attacks, leaks and fake news have a much broader impact in election campaigns. Russia and China are also relying on military means, as the current threatening gestures by Russian troops on the Ukrainian border, violations of Taiwanese airspace, or even territorial expansions in the Crimea or in the South China Sea show. Conceptually, according to the Gerasimov doctrine, these tactics belong in the same spectrum as political activities. A conventional air, ground or sea war is therefore rarely declared officially, but the conflict in the gray area between war and peace is the new permanent state. 8 years after the publication of Gerasimov's article, Boris Johnson's Conservative government has presented a new security policy strategy and plans for an army reform with which Great Britain is more resolute than any other European country to address this new threat situation. On the one hand, London marks a transition to an integrated foreign and security policy. Brexit Britain sees itself in an age of global rivalries between authoritarian and democratic systems, and it is willing to promote its research location, development, and foreign economic policy or media radiance to throw the BBC into the pen. On the other hand, the government is planning a shift in the weight of military capabilities. London wants to retire expensive platforms as well as some of the tanks and soldiers in order to free up scope for investment in new technologies and to expand the armed forces range of action below the threshold of war. It is remarkable the consistency with which the British pursued the austerity pillar, despite the fact that they are increasing defense spending by a total of £24 billion over the next 4 years, the largest increase in the defense budget since the end of the Cold War. Nevertheless, the number of tanks is reduced from 227 to 148, and the Air Force loses over 100 aircraft in total. The program of Warrior armored personnel carriers from the 70s, the modernization of which has already cost huge amounts of money, is completely thrown overboard. The reduction in the number of troops caused great excitement in the media. The target figure from 82,000 today will be reduced to 70,000. Commentators complained that the British armed forces were falling to their lowest level since 1714, although the question of the relevance of this comparison for the 21st century remained unanswered. However, the concern to be taken seriously is that Great Britain will find it difficult to cope with two simultaneous missions in the future, such as those in Afghanistan and Iraq after the turn of the millennium, or a large independent operation such as the Falklands War in 1982. But the British generals object that looking into the past is of little help in preparing for the wars of the future. They refer, for example, to the recent conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan over Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijani drones from Turkish and Israeli production played a decisive role in this. The Armenian tanks remained powerless against the unmanned missiles, which found enemy positions and then opened fire using artificial intelligence or the remote control of an operator. In the picture the government paints of the agile armed forces of the future, new technologies and capabilities stand out in bright colors. Drones transmit recordings directly to soldiers' mobile phones. Artificial intelligence scores data sets and controls autonomous weapon systems, and cyber specialists intercept enemy communications. A new 1,000-strong Ranger Regiment, reminiscent of the United States Army Special Forces, is to accompany Allied troops and rebels in hostile surroundings or to counter Russian and Chinese activities. The combination of conventional skills, new technologies, and hybrid tactics, which recently led the Allied fight against the terrorist organization Islamic State in Iraq to success, is expected to become the norm. According to the analysis of London, cyberspace and space are gaining importance alongside the dimensions of land, air, and water. The fact that Washington and London accused Moscow last year of having tested anti-satellite weapons made the establishment of a British space command urgent. An attack on a satellite could put entire communications and navigation systems out of action. The British awareness of the vulnerability of the underwater cables in the Atlantic, through which the majority of global communication data flows. To prevent Russian submarines from tapping into the cables, the UK wants to develop a new spy ship. This joins the plans for renaissance of the importance of the Royal Navy, which is to guarantee open trade and communication channels around the world. This dream of the future sounds maybe excessive. The dismantling of tanks, fighter jets, and soldiers has a much more concrete effect than investing in new technologies, some of which will only take place towards the end of the decade and are therefore far less tangible. In this respect, the British plans are also a bet on the future. In the short term, the country will accept a marked reduction in the size of the armed forces compared to other countries in order to be ready for the next step, the contours of which are not yet recognizable in all details. Against this background, the recent decision to rearm nuclear weapons for the first time in decades is intended to guarantee that London can maintain its deterrent potential. Overall, the new defense strategy also reflects the opportunities and contradictions of Brexit. The government of Boris Johnson shows courage, innovative strength, and a willingness to break new ground, which one seeks in vain in other capitals with this consequence. In addition, London underlines the will to play an active geopolitical role after Brexit, even if the image of global Britain may resonate with a nostalgic memory of the old colonial empire. But Great Britain is no longer a superpower, which is why the realization that the spectrum of warfare is widening requires painful priorities to be set. The partnership with the USA and NATO are likely to gain in importance. Within the alliance, the British approach could reinforce the tendency towards a division of labor, according to which the Eastern NATO partners bring more heavy weapons and the Western countries more digital capabilities into the alliance. However, the new plans also show that the longer it takes, the less the UK can fulfill its claim to confidently carry out a major operation. This is a painful realization, especially in the Brexit era. The wounds of the separation with Brussels also show when the government speaks of partnerships with individual EU countries, but ignores the existence of the European Union. The EU may be a dwarf in defense policy, but given the blending of military and civilian threats, it cannot simply be ignored. Thanks to its innovative strength, its strategic outlook, and its security political weight, Great Britain has a lot to contribute to a new partnership with continental Europe. An era of permanent tension, on the other hand, ultimately played into the hands of the authoritarian forces in Beijing and Moscow, where Brexit is seen as an opportunity to divide the West. And of course, Britain has learned one thing more from Brexit because of the way the campaigns for the referendum were, let's just say done. Because I was talking about fake news and stuff like this in the beginning. Via social media, the use, we don't have to bring up Cambridge Analytica and other things. It is successful. And even today, with the pandemic and the consequence of Brexit, Boris Johnson's government is using these techniques to influence his own people. and to cover up some parts he doesn't want to be shown very openly, although everybody knows or could know this. And so, of course, he is one of those people who really must know the danger if that comes from the outside. And so we have to prepare to defend ourselves against those actions from the outside. But who defends the people if these actions are used on the inside? We will see. But if you want to stay informed, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.